5 p.m. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. We will call the meeting to order at 5:01. At this point in time, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Bray, or Mr. Bray, do you mind leading us in that pledge? Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and call the roll and determine quorum.
Mr. Bray? Ms. Lyons? Mr. Marcus? Mr. Carney?
Present.
Mr. Parker? Mr. Rosa? Mr. Chavon? Chair Blank?
Present.
You have a quorum.
Great, thank you so much. That'll bring us to approval of the minutes from our March 7th, 2022 meeting. Are there any amendments to the minutes by any members of the board? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Carney. Seconded by Mr. Rosa. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All any opposed? Okay, that'll pass. The minutes will be adopted. Here they are signed for whoever needs those. All right, any members of the public that wish to address the board this evening, please stand and raise your hand to be sworn in by the city attorney.
Stand, please. If you're going to talk to the board today, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Welcome to our meeting. Okay, so that's going to bring us to it's going to bring us to an issue or an item that I'm adding on last minute to the agenda by request of the city attorney. There is a review that we want to do of some of the Florida statutes relating to conflicts of interest to make sure that, that our board is just up to date and up to speed on that. That's something that we haven't really gone over and discussed in quite some time. We did it, I think, it seems like a year ago, but with COVID, it might have been actually like 3 years ago. So we're going to do a quick refresher that Sherry's going to walk us through just so that we can make sure that we're all up to speed on that. Sherry?
Okay. Will you move it for me, Tricia? Okay. Oh, all right. Okay. We're going to talk about briefly just a few statutes regarding the Code of Ethics for public officers. If you could please go to the next slide. Okay, so everyone here on the board is considered a public officer. This includes any person elected or appointed to hold office in any agency, including any person serving on an advisory board. And that's section 112.313 Florida Statutes. So every time that we go to another statute today, just understand that you are considered a public officer. Next slide. Now, this one is extremely important. They all are, but I just want to make sure that everyone reads this and understands it. It's section 112.313, subsection 6, and it states, misuse of public position. No public officer, employee, or an agency or local government attorney shall corruptly use or attempt to use his or her official position or any property or resource which may be within his or her trust or perform his or her official duties to secure a special privilege, benefit, or exemption for himself, herself, or others. And so the important thing to remember with this is you have the privilege of being a board member, and you're not supposed to use that position to secure any sort of benefit that's not available to the general public for yourself. You're privy to certain information that the public may not have initially, and so you're not supposed to use that information for your own special benefit. And this can be a financial benefit or any sort of benefit. And just make sure that you understand that. If anyone has any questions, we can talk about it. Next slide. 112.31343 Florida Statutes. This one you may be already familiar with. This one is the one that we use when we are recusing ourselves or abstaining from voting. And this one talks about your voting conflict. And this applies whenever you have a financial gain or a financial loss whenever an application comes up. So if you're going to somehow lose something, whether it's a financial, whether it's you assume it's value in your property, whatever it is that you think that it is financial that you're going to lose, then this will come up, and you're supposed to abstain from voting, and you're supposed to let the board know why you're abstaining from voting. So this has come up with lawsuits that involve the city, potential lawsuits, any sort of financial loss or gain, whether it's to you or a family member. Next slide.
Wait, before we go back, you actually go back for a minute. Quick question on that. So anytime a member abstains from a vote, they're supposed to advise the board of why?
Well, whenever it's a financial gain or loss, whether it's to that board member or a family member or a business associate. And that's under Chapter 112. But we're going to get to another statute where you don't necessarily have to say why you're abstaining from voting. That's the next statute we're going to go to.
Okay, maybe I jumped ahead.
And
Sorry.
the next statute we're going to go to is 286.012. And in this particular statute here, you don't have to explain to the board why you are abstaining from voting. You could just keep it to yourself. You don't even have to fill out that voter conflict form. The conflict form is under Chapter 112. Under 286.012, you're abstaining from voting if you believe that it's to assure a fair proceeding free from potential bias or prejudice. So this one doesn't necessarily have to involve anything financial. If you found that you're getting way too involved in the process or the process is involving you too much and you think that you're going to cause some sort of bias or prejudice, then you can abstain from voting and you don't have to explain why using this statute.
So let me just make sure that I understand the difference. And this actually reminds me of you, Richard, Mr. Rosa. I think that you've actually filled this form out a couple times where we were dealing with one of your properties. So the distinction of when you have to explain your abstention is if you have some sort of financial benefit or if there's some sort of financial bias in some way that we take into account. But if it's non-financial, you don't need to disclose your reasoning.
That's correct. If it's non-financial, then it goes to 286. But remember that under 112, it's a business associates, family members, so it's not just you. So there's a whole list of people.
Got it.
That's correct.
Okay.
And so that's the end of it. Just wanted to remind everyone about these statutes. So whenever anything comes up that you think that you may have a conflict, it's best to abstain from voting. The penalties under Chapter 112 are very severe. You can be removed from your position. You could possibly have to pay financial penalties. There's some people who are arrested under this statute. So just be very, very careful about violating any of these statutes, particularly Chapter 112. So if anyone has any questions, I can speak with you outside or at the meeting.
Well, I guess let's see first if anybody has any questions regarding any of this tonight. Go ahead. Just make sure your mic's on.
Hello?
Yeah.
Am I on? If somebody didn't recuse themselves and we voted on an issue and then it came out that there was a problem, does that nullify the whole voting process and we have to go address it again?
It doesn't nullify it, but there may be a potential issue for that person being reported for the violation.
It would certainly open up an argument if someone wanted to bring it up again.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think that would open Pandora's box, right?
Okay, I was going to address this at the application that's the number C on the agenda this evening.
Okay.
And that's would be part of my disclosures then. If you want me to do it now, I will.
Do you have a disclosure on that item?
I do.
Let's wait till then.
Sure, that's okay.
Well, I haven't, I'm not chair, so I don't believe he's called that item yet. So I think just for the record.
Because
I
it would be
don't-
part of the disclosure at that point, which could be a determination of whether it's appropriate or not. But
So then let's wait till that item to address it because I want to make sure that it's in turn and specific to that item, especially for the
Okay.
record, because I don't know what you're talking about. So
Right.
let's make sure it's just compartmentalized there.
Okay.
But does anybody, and thank you, does anybody have any questions for the city attorney on these items? And this is one of those things where also I think it's important, and I'd advocate to the rest of the board, every once in a while, take a couple of minutes and review the sunshine law summary that the city gives us when we join the board. Because a lot of times I think conversations that we may have with other people or even with each other, if we run into each other out or whatever, we do our best to stay out in the sunshine, meaning we don't discuss things that could come before the board for a vote. But I want to make sure that we're not making mistakes and having conversations that we shouldn't be thinking they're okay when they're not. So I'd encourage everybody just to review the sunshine law as well. I just want to make sure everything's above board. Lord knows we are a visible board in the city, and I think we want to make sure that we're doing everything right. I think I echo everybody's sentiments here. So let's just all make sure that we stay abreast and up to date on all that, and it can't ever hurt to have a reminder for everyone. Okay, anything else, Ms. Mullen, on that?
Nothing else. Thank you.
Great, thanks. If anybody does have any questions that pop up, let's just go ahead and email Sherry. And of course, if it's something that we think the board would benefit from, I'm sure Ms. Mullen will share it with us, even in the abstract. Okay, so thank you for that. That will bring us to Our agenda items, the first item on our agenda this morning, this evening, it has been a long Monday, is certificate of appropriateness for new construction under case number UDP HP 22007, new construction of a single-family residence at 726 Southwest 2 Court. Let's see, do we have the applicant present on that item? Ayal Hayam? Yeah. All right, awesome. So we're going to go ahead and hear the staff report, but if you all want to head over onto that side so that you can approach the microphone when it is your turn to present, that would be great. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Trish for the staff report on this.
Would you like to do disclosures first?
Yeah, you know what? That's a great idea. We can do those before the staff. All right, let's do it before the staff report. So we'll go through disclosures. I'm going to start down this end with Mr. Rosa. Actually, no, we'll start with Mr. Bray. Mr. Bray, any disclosures on this item?
I've walked by the property and I have no other financial disclosures.
Okay, thank you. Any disclosures, Mr. Rosa?
I drive by all the time.
Okay. Mr. Parker?
Okay.
Any disclosures? No?
It's down the street from me.
Okay, so you're familiar with the property? All right, I have none. Mr. Carney?
Nothing to disclose.
Mr. Chavone? Okay, thank you so much. Trish?
Okay, good afternoon, Historic Preservation Board. My name is Tricia Logan. I'm the Historic Preservation Board liaison. This application is for a certificate of appropriateness for new construction to construct a new 2-story single-family residence on a vacant lot. This property is also located in an archaeologically significant zone. The applicant has been working with staff for the past few months on developing this project in order to meet as much of the guidelines as possible. So there's very few items and elements that don't meet the criteria of the code. So I'm just going to highlight what those are for your benefit. So the first thing that the proposed new construction project partially meets within the code is regarding the fencing. The fencing that's proposed exceeds the historic preservation design guidelines by 8 inches. We do propose 3 feet with a visibility of at least 30% in the front of a property, but in this case, they proposed a little bit higher so that they can support their metal picket fence by a small wall. And then the second item that partially meets the criteria is a metal canopy on the structure. Within our material and design guidelines, metal is only approved to be used for fencing and railing. It's not specifically called out as a canopy material. And then the other element is on the plans that shows that the glass that's to be used in the windows is to be gray tinted. However, we ask that all glass to be clear with an option of a low E coating, which allows for some of the retention of heat, or not retention of heat into the building. So other than that, it does meet our criteria within the code. There are on page 6 of the staff report, there are a few elements that zoning has pointed out as part of their review that need to be addressed and corrected when the property owner goes forward with permitting. If this application is to be approved, and the applicant, that has been shared with the applicant ahead of time, so they're aware of those elements, but none of it directly affects the overall composition of the proposed new construction project. So with that, I'll read the summary conclusion. Staff finds that the application for a COA for new construction under case number UDP-HP 22007 located at 726 Southwest 2nd Court meets the criteria as outlined in section 472411 D3CI of the ULDR and meets the criteria as outlined in section 472411 D3CII of the ULDR and partially meets the criteria as outlined in section 4717 of the ULDR. There are a few conditions that are provided for consideration of the HPB if this application is to be approved. The first is that all glass shall be clear with an option of low E coating. The gray tinted glass is not approved for this project. 2, and I didn't highlight this, but the CMU wall in the rear yard must be finished with stucco or other materials that is complementary to the structure. This is just ensuring that there is a a finish on that wall. It wasn't specifically pointed out in the plans. The third condition is related to the archaeologically significant zone in which it's located, and that the applicant is required to contract with an archaeologist to provide a shovel test survey that includes samples from throughout the project site and states whether the development site holds archaeological significance. The archaeologist must state within the report if further testing on the site is required and or if monitoring by the archaeologist is required during ground disturbing activity once construction commences. The shovel test survey and any further preliminary testing recommended by the archaeologist must be provided prior to permitting. And if monitoring is required, a final report must be submitted to UDMP Division and the Historic Preservation Board liaison within 45 days following the completion of this ground disturbing work. And then the fourth condition is the application is subject to the approval by building, zoning, and all ULDR requirements, including landscaping.
Thank you. All right. So, I just have actually, I'm going to hold that question for you. Okay, so we do have the applicant or their representative present. Go ahead and do me a favor. Come on, approach that microphone. Make sure that when you do speak into the mic, that you actually speak into that mic. You want to get close to it. Tell us your name, your address, if you're the applicant or if you're their agent, and you will have 15 minutes to address the board. Michael, hang on 2 seconds. I think that mic might be off. There might be a button at the bottom of that. If you could push that button, let's try that again. I might have even heard your name wrong. Your name could be Josh for all I know.
Oh, yeah. Much better now. I can hear myself. Thanks.
There we go. All right. Do me a favor. Start over again. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to meet you today. My name is Michael Garrison. I'm president and CEO of Prism Architecture.
And I got Michael
thank you.
right. That was
nice to meet you. Thank you all for the opportunity to hear the case today. We're here to answer any questions and be of any assistance that we can and laid out. So we've been working for the past month with Historic, closely and making sure that, all the details are basically covered with everything. So we're pleased to hear that it's close anyway. and that's it. I'm here to answer any questions that you guys may have.
okay. Thank you so much. Anybody else from your team want to address the board now? Kind of as a
For now, we good.
no? Okay. All right. Well, that was the best 15-minute presentation we've had in a while. All right. So are there any other members of the public who wish to address the board on this item? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment. I have a question for Trish before I kind of open it up to everybody else. Just regarding the finish, the exterior building walls finish, you say it partially meets criterion, but if I'm not mistaken, it appears that the finish is stucco smooth finish. So isn't that exactly what we're looking for?
Yeah, the only element was regarding a metal canopy that didn't quite meet the regulations.
So it's, I see. So even though it lists the finish, it's not the finish that makes it partially meet.
The
It's the
exterior finish is smooth stucco, some textured stucco, and
They have it. I think they have a copy.
on this one, trying to remember.
Yeah, because it's under ULDR 47-17.7.b sub 1. You said it partially met criterion, but it seems to me that based on that, at least for that section,
Yeah,
it would meet. But that metal overhang is the one that
yeah,
got it.
and that's the only
Canopy,
element.
excuse me.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you. All right. Any questions from the board? I'll start down at this end first. We'll get to you in 2 seconds. Anybody down this end? No. Ms. Bray, questions? All right. No questions from the board. Well, if there are no questions from the board,
Sorry, 1 second.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Eyal Haim.
Hi.
I'm one of the builders, and I just want to say something about the canopy.
yeah, please enlighten us.
How you can reflect the image.
Do me a favor, though. I'll get into that microphone. Eat
I
it.
don't know how can I reflect the image that is here, so you guys can see it.
Andres, could you reflect the image?
Huh? Project.
Give it just 1 minute.
All good.
Working on it.
So the reason why we doing the metal, looking around and
Just move that picture a little bit so that we can see it. If you look at the TV, you'll be able to see how we see it. So I want you to adjust it so that we can see it how you want us to see it. I think you got to turn it 90 degrees. There you go. That looks about right. Just slide it up a little bit.
So in the design of the canopy, the way I saw it, being in the historical district, I wanted to create some depth to it and then add a little bit of almost like half a circle that looked like a bullet to just even bring more historical look to it. It's not going to be so wide. What is the width that we have right now there?
It's the width from about 3, 6, 12 feet.
12 inch?
12 feet, or
Oh.
height-wise?
No, the width from the
width.
wall from the...
Oh, 3 feet.
3 feet, so it's going to be only 3 feet, but I think it's going to create a really nice detail for the rest of the house. And again, in my vision, I'm going to try to keep it very historical look with the bolts and the whatever is going to be attaching to the wall. So it's not that I'm going to try. Well, I want to stay the historic features, and can I even bring in more to this transition look? This is the idea that I have with that.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. In light of those additional comments, any questions or comments from the board? Any members? Anybody?
Mr. Haim, did you want to show these new drawings to the board? You just had a couple of modifications.
It wasn't nothing for
Okay.
the front we did. Yeah, but please, if you can.
Okay.
Thank you.
The applicant did have a couple of small changes, primarily to the secondary facades in the applications, and he would just like to walk you guys through that.
Sure,
I'm just
that'd be
gonna
great.
pass these out.
And are these changes were in response to staff's positioning?
Exactly,
You can
yes,
just-
correct.
Some of them, yes.
Okay, got it.
No, I've got them memorized. I should.
Thank you so much. And we'll go ahead and we'll make a copy of these supplemental
Thank you.
drawings part of the record of tonight's hearing.
Okay.
Correct. No. Oops. Oh, you're fine. Jamie, I'll give you my copy when we're done. I'll give you my copy when we're done if you need it. No? Okay, great. All right, so somebody want from the team to walk us through this?
Mike, did you want to?
Yes, yeah. So this was in response to some of the comments that were issued. We addressed them last minute. That's what you have in your possession. So there was a couple of items. Some were, and I can start. Does everybody have the comment narrative? Or just the plans?
The last page of the staff report? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, ma'am.
Page
Well,
7 of the staff.
actually, it was a comment narrative, correct. And then I did like a narrative to it.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
sure.
Oh, okay. Good. So basically what they were, items number 1 through 5, was primarily some stuff with windows. We were kind of going back and forth last minute on some of the window sizes, configurations, and whatnot. Comment number 2 was a small piece of CME wall located at the rear. We need that for a shear wall. The glass, we would propose to go non-low E just because of the price of the glass. If there's a tint that's acceptable that's non-reflective, perhaps we did make a note in the window schedule that the tint, if so, would be non-reflective. The CME wall at 6 foot, the smooth stucco finish, that's exactly what we did. We made it smooth stucco. We added a note on the plan for that. Comment number 5 is talking about the aluminum, the canopy that's in question. It is going to match the roof, so some of the elements in the house will be consistent. And then comments number 1 through 12 was zoning primarily. Comment number 1 is talking about the side yard setbacks to provide dimensions on all corners. We did that. It conforms to the setbacks. Comment number 2 about the fill not being permitted is actually something I want to discuss with you guys. So we've reached out to floodplain to determine the finished floor elevation of the house. We believe it's going to be 7 feet. The current grade's at about 3.5 feet right now. So we will have to bring some fill in to put the house at its required height. So I'm not quite sure of that comment. Comment number 3, we
So
mentioned.
wait, let me stop you there, because I think we might be looking at two different things here, and I'm trying to follow you, and some of them I'm following, but they're numbered differently. So I guess I'm not sure what it is that you're referring to with these comments.
Let me, you know what? Let me start with maybe the staff report.
Yeah, because I just don't know where the comment, who made, or let me put it this way.
Okay.
I don't know who made the comments, so I don't know.
Well, some of them were comments through us.
Okay, gotcha.
Let me pull it up real quick.
We're on page 6 of 7 of the staff report. He's reading from the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I'm with. But what he was talking about was, I think, different from what we have.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at least the numbers didn't line up. So that's where I'm wondering what it was. Some of them did. Like I saw some
Mine
of the
were
issues,
lining up.
like-
I was just going to say. Mine were fine.
Am I looking at the wrong thing?
Has anybody got a copy of the staff report? Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Am I the only one who's confused?
This is it.
Wouldn't be the first time.
I don't have the staff report.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So let's see, on the staff report,
Well, let me ask. Let me try to
Yes.
streamline this a bit. Let me turn that thing off, because really we don't need that. These new plans that were just provided to us, these new drawings. What's different on these?
primarily just window configurations and sizes.
Okay.
We did a couple of material changes under some of the windows. We did like a lapboard siding and whatnot, but that's pretty much it.
Okay, and the as far as the concern of the staff report as to the tinting, you're saying, look, you're not concerned with the tinting, but you just want a non-low E glass?
Correct.
Clear,
Exactly.
though.
Yes, just clear.
Okay.
Exactly. Or some type of tint that's clear, non-reflective tint. An actual laminated
That's
glass.
where the issue lies, right?
Yes.
Trish, and I know you're not right in front of a microphone, but you're nodding yes. No, that's fine. You're nodding yes, though, because I believe that the issue with the code is the tinting, not the low E. The low E is an option, but the tinting is actually the concern. So the windows would have to be clear, and I think that that's something that we need to settle on now, so that the board can appropriately vote. So let me ask you, as the applicant, is your intent to go with a clear non-low E glass, or to go with a tinted non-low E glass?
a tinted but clear look laminated glass, not low E with gas in it.
Got that. So Trish, what's your feeling on that? If you have one.
Well, within our historic preservation design guidelines, it states that clear glass is the preferred option.
Preferred, not required.
Yeah, all of our guidelines, like our design guidelines and then the material and design guidelines, are up at the board's discretion, but in general, the consistency throughout the district has been with the clear glass.
Okay. And then it seems that the other hang up, we'll say, is the aluminum awning. Trish, talk to me for a brief moment. You might have said this and I might have missed it. Is it it's the material of the awning that's of concern, am I correct?
It's not necessarily of a concern, it's just that it's not something that's outlined within our material and design guidelines specifically, and it does state within the material and design guidelines that aluminum should only be used for awnings, or not awning, sorry,
For
railings and fencing.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from members of the board on any of these issues? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Tricia, just one clarification on awnings. What are the guidelines set forth as a preferred material?
We don't really have a specific
Okay.
material that's outlined. It's just the fact that the material and design guidelines talk about using only aluminum for certain purposes.
But just to be clear, we don't have an awnings suggestion in the guidelines. Okay.
No,
Can we open it up to the public?
you can click
We did already.
Which, are you
staff
sure?
report.
Okay.
We did. And close
I
it.
was in La La Land, sorry.
That's okay.
Well, am I allowed to make any comments at this point?
I'm sorry? Yeah,
Yeah,
please.
great. Just, first of all, I wanted to thank you for building a single-family home in the community. And I think it's a very thoughtful design. So, and it's considerate of the neighborhood. I'm not fond of the garage in the front, but it has become very common. And the design helped to diminish the effect of the front porch with the covered entryway. I'd like to take off the condition of clear windows and allow the tinting. Tinting does exist in many contributing and non-contributing homes in Sailboat Bend. It is a much more considerate of the energy efficiency and the environment. I motion to, unless anybody else has any comments, I'd motion to approve the resolution for certificate of appropriateness for new construction under case number UDP HP 22007, located at 726 Southwest Second Court, based on the following findings of fact. That it meets the requirements. I'm not sure how you're supposed to phrase that, but
You could just say you adopt the findings of fact in the staff report.
no, I'm going to eliminate the tinting on the windows. So
You're not approving the tinting?
I think that that's not necessary to have on the condition for approval.
Wait, I want to clarify here. Your motion would adopt the findings of fact by the staff report, except for
Or
the
tinting.
the non-tinted
Right,
window
the
requirement.
requirement for the condition of tinting.
Got it. So you're okay with tinting.
Correct.
Got it.
And if I can interject real quick, we'd like to get some clarification on the Phil comment too. Saying that no fill is.
Hang on 1 minute, because he's in the middle of making a motion, and then we'll be happy to address your question. Go ahead, Mr. Bray.
So I approve it as it is, the subject of the following condition, that it be allowed to proceed without the condition of tinting.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Clear?
And all other conditions, as listed in the staff report, namely
Yes.
that they comply with all zoning requirements and other ULDR requirements?
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
I do.
Seconded by Mr. Parker? All right, thank you. Having a second, we'll now have discussion. Sir, you had a comment or a question?
Yes, sir. So one of the comments was fill is not permitted except for minor grading, which I wanted to clarify what you mean exactly by minor grading, because the current property has an elevation of about 3.5 feet, and we need to bring some fill in to bring it up to.
It's a zoning comment, but it's
Zoning.
really something that you'll have to discuss with our floodplain manager
Okay.
Go.
on how to address it.
Okay.
Good question, wrong place.
And it's not something the HPB can.
Right.
Wait.
Yeah, that's way outside of our wheelhouse. All right, any discussion on the motion?
Just a question on a clarification, somewhat related to that point. Was there any particular reason the fence came over 8 inches? I don't think anyone really brought that up. Was it just aesthetic at that height? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, anything else?
I just wanted to clarify, we're not changing any of the conditions in the staff report. They're adopted as is. So one of the conditions says gray tinted glass is not approved for this project.
And I'm taking that off from
That was the one condition that we're removing.
You're removing the entire number or just that part?
We're
just the
retiring.
tinting.
Just that part.
We're just the tinting. Everything else is fine. There's the option for low E, a recommendation for clear glass, but we have no issue with the tinting.
No issue. Got it.
That was it.
Okay,
May I read the resolution?
please.
A resolution of the Historic Preservation Board of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, approving a certificate of appropriateness for new construction for a 2-story single-family residence for the property located at 726 Southwest Second Court, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, in the Sailboat Bend Historic District, case number UDP HP 22007.
Okay, that being the resolution for adoption, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Congratulations. Thank you very
Awesome.
much.
Thank you, guys.
That'll bring us to our second item on the agenda. Certificate of appropriateness for new construction under case number UDP HP 22008, new construction of a single-family residence located at 720 Southwest Second Court. Mr. Hyam, also yours. All right, we do have an applicant here. Let's go ahead with disclosures on this item, starting with Mr. Rosa. Any disclosures? Drive-by? Mr. Parker, any disclosures? Walk by it? Live by it. Gotcha. None from me. Mr. Carney?
None.
Mr. Chavone has none. Mr. Bray?
Walk by.
All right, walking by. Awesome. Okay, so that'll bring us to staff report. Trish?
So this is an application for a certificate of appropriateness for new construction of a 2-story single-family home. Similarly to the last application that we reviewed, it's also on a vacant lot and located within an archaeologically significant zone. The materials and features of the design are very similar to the property next door. And the issues that staff has are exactly the same as the last application. So up to the board if you want me to review those again.
I think that
You're good?
we're good on
Okay.
that.
All right.
They are the same.
Yeah.
So then let me ask this. We'll go to the applicant, sir. You certainly have 15 minutes, and let me reset your clock. You certainly have 15 minutes to address the board, but let me ask, are there any other comments other than the last item before the board that you'd like to bring to our attention?
Little as possible.
All right, well, I'm going to start your clock so that you can once again reclaim the award for shortest 15-minute presentation. Go. I do need your name, and I do need your address and your relationship to the applicant.
Okay. My name is Michael Garrison. I'm president and CEO of Prism Architecture. We're the architect of record for the address at 726 Southwest 2nd Street. We work very closely with staff and.
I'm sorry, let me ask, are you also on the 720 Southwest 2nd Court?
Yes.
Perfect.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. That's the one we're done now.
Which has a Middle Street address.
You just won the other one. We're on this one now.
720, 726.
Gotcha.
Correct. Yes, sir. And that's it. And we're here to answer any questions anybody may have, and appreciate your recommendation.
Thank you. Great job. Even shorter than last time. That's wonderful. Let's open it up. Are there any members of the public who wish to address the board on this item? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment. Ms. Wallen, I'm closing public comment, just so you know.
I heard this time.
Okay, good. Just
Sorry.
wanted to make sure.
Yes.
I'll bring it to the board. Any questions of the applicant on this item, being fully aware that this is the exact same proposal and same staff report
Not the
recommendation?
exact same proposal, but the applicant does have updated plans for this one as well, with just some minor modifications, primarily to the window openings on the secondary facades.
We'll go ahead and adopt those we'll accept those and we'll make those part of the record for this item. Does anybody on the board need to see those? Hold
They'll
them.
pass it out. Got
Yeah.
it. Part of the record.
That's fine. All right. Okay, any discussion, any comments or questions from members of the board of the applicant or of Trish on this?
No, my comments are the same, that it was well thought out and, again, the removal of the tinting I think is appropriate.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
The condition for tinting.
All right, so then with that, hearing no comment or questions from the board, I'd entertain a motion,
Okay.
if one were to be made.
I have a question. So the canopy, what was the clarification on the canopy then? Is
There
it
was none.
acceptable? Acceptable to pass?
On the last item, there was none. Do you want us to address it on this one?
No.
Okay, just want to make sure. Mr. Bray, any chance you have a motion on this one?
Let me just get to that page.
Sure.
Yes, I motion to approve the resolution for certificate of appropriateness for new construction under case number UDP HP 22008, located at 720 Southwest 2nd Court, based on the following filings, which are findings that are recorded, and the conditions are to remove the tinting from the requirement for approval.
So you're also adopting that all other requirements of the ULDR and that recommendations by zoning be followed?
Yes.
Okay. Can we go ahead and read the resolution?
A resolution of the Historic Preservation Board of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, approving a certificate of appropriateness for new construction for a two-story, single-family residence for the property located at 720 Southwest 2nd Court, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, in the Sailboat Bend Historic District, case number UDP HP 22008.
Thank you. The resolution having been read, is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Mr. Parker. Thank you so much. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Congratulations for the second time tonight. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's going to be a beautiful piece of property. All right, so that's going to bring us to our third item on the agenda, and that's this was placed on the agenda after a notification of administrative review, and I want to bring up this point real quick before we move forward. An email was sent out questioning whether or not questioning whether or not the board intended to call this item up. I did not as chair and advise staff as such, but my understanding is that one member of the board did request the item be brought up. I think it was Mr. Bray, if I'm not mistaken. Am I correct there?
Yes.
All right, so that's fine, but I do not believe it's appropriate for the item to be brought up without a vote of the board, because my understanding and my interpretation of the statute is that if an item wants to be placed on the agenda, it has to be the board's decision, not a member of the board's decision. So, and I'm going to, just so everybody's aware, I'm looking at the ULDR code section 47-17.4, application for alterations or new construction, sub A2. And that reads that no certificate of appropriateness for alteration or new construction granted by the department shall be effective for a period of 15 days subsequent to the department's decision. The department shall, within 5 days after its grant of a certificate of appropriateness, advise the members of the Historic Preservation Board and City Commission of its decision. If, during that 15-day period, the Historic Preservation Board or City Commission wishes the application to be reviewed, the decision of the department shall automatically be stayed and the application shall be reviewed by the Historic Preservation Board as a new application for a certificate of appropriateness in accordance with the procedures, et cetera, et cetera. So because of the wording of the language, if during that 15-day period the Historic Preservation Board wishes the application to be reviewed, I believe this has to come up for a vote before consideration. In the chair's opinion, the email response should constitute a vote, but that's never been clarified to us. So what I mean by that is when they send out the email, does the board intend to call this up? In my opinion, a response of the majority of the members would be needed for it to be agended. It's not specific in the code. That's just my interpretation. But the item was agended because a member wished to have it heard. But I think that before we can consider it, we need to have a vote of the board. So I'm going to ask that Mr. Bray's affirmative request to have the item called up be considered a motion for consideration by the board, and that we vote on that here tonight. If it's approved, we'll discuss it as a normal item. If it's not approved or adopted, then that means it goes back to Trish for administrative handling. Because you remember this is one of those things where we get those emails and they say, hey, do you wish to hear about this? Otherwise, Trish just does it on her free time because, you know, she has so much of it. So with Mr. Bray's request to have this being considered a motion, Shari, do we need a second? I guess we need a second of that motion.
Well, I think it would be best if it's just stated on the record that Mr. Ray says, I'm requesting that this be called up, and then there's a motion, but I think there's also there may be a recusal issue.
Well, I know that I know that we have the issue that you were addressing earlier, Mr. Bray, that we're going to have to address, but I don't think that pertains to whether or not the item should be considered. I think that would be a matter as to the substantive, the substance of the item. So let me put it this way. Mr. Bray having made the request to have this item agended, is there a motion for the board to consider it? Let's start with that. Hearing none, I do not believe, since there's no motion, I think the item dies. And so then I do not believe it's ripe for consideration. I mean, tell me, Shari, if you think my interpretation is wrong in that.
I don't disagree with the request for review provision with the city commission. That's typically how it's done. One commission member will email, and then it will be brought before the commission, and they'll have to vote on whether or not the call-up goes through, and that they can process the call-up accordingly, and that's consistent with how it's done.
So, I mean, the statute being silent on the procedure of that, then I think that it would be persuasive, certainly, of the other procedures and the ways. I mean, look, if we want to place anything on our agenda on any other day, we all vote on it, right? I mean, Sherry usually yells at me when I say, hey, I want to put this on for good of this city next week or next month. And Sherry says, we need to vote. So, I mean, I think that that's proper. So the item having been brought before the board, there being no motion, it dies, and item number 3 will be deleted from the agenda.
Well, and that was part of the point of bringing it before the board. It was for the good of the city why this should be discussed, for the historic relevance to the community and the city itself.
Well, and sure, and I certainly understand that, and I think that what we need to do in the future is, and I'm going to work with Sherry and Trish on this to try to see if we can establish a better procedure so that we don't come into a situation where the item's brought before the board, the applicant has already waited, everything's been stayed, and then we come into a situation where we don't address it. If it's emailed out to us or the issue is brought to our attention as, is this something that needs to be discussed or that should be discussed or that we want to discuss as a board, we can then vote on that first to get it on the agenda appropriately. And that way we can address it properly. If, well, I guess that's pretty much it. I mean, this goes back to Trish then to be handled administratively.
It's already administratively approved once it dies here. So.
All right.
Without having adequate information or being discussed, you don't know if it's properly approved or should be approved because you don't have the information.
Well, we received the information through the administrative process and the email that was sent out to the board, and you were the only person who wished to call it up. So everybody had the same amount of information. And that's the key here, right? Is everybody has the same amount of information.
But that it's lacking in information was the
So okay, and that may be the case, right? And if that's a situation where it's lacking information, then that's something administratively that I think you need to bring up with staff to either remedy that situation, rectify it, and or have that information be provided to the board within that 15-day time frame. Which we are now past. But I think it would be inappropriate to consider the matter based on the request of one member of the board. I don't think that's how the statute reads.
Well, and it was never raised as an issue of concern during the 15-day waiting period. This is only now being raised at the point of it being brought before the board. So it's kind of
I'm not sure.
It's a rushed decision or a rushed issue because it was not raised as
What was not raised?
as the information being needed to be reported before it was presented to the board.
I guess I'm a little confused as to what information you're
Well,
speaking of, but
Because that's the point. I have significant information that would help to shine light on this application. And
I'm guessing that that's the information that would lead to your necessary recusal as well.
right.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, not a catch-22. So I think that in that point, and what we've seen sometimes, I know with Mr. Rosa dealing with some of his properties in the past, is that information would be provided to Trish. You would submit your recusal at that time. The recusal would be sent around to the board by Trish, as well as that additional information for consideration prior to a decision during that period. That's my understanding of how it's worked in the past. I think.
It was always just a form that was filed.
It was just the
prior
form.
to-
I thought I remembered. Or no, I guess you would present.
I would identify it and verbalize it at the meeting, but prior to the meeting, we'd always file the form. I forget the form type, but it's a standard Florida statute form, I believe.
And I think that this is a great example of why the procedure needs to be codified and why this section needs to be addressed with the commission. And certainly we being Trish, you, me, and Sherry can work together to put something together that we can then bring to the board to ship off to the commission, because this lack of procedure here and, runs into a situation where, for better or worse, I believe that this is the proper procedure of the way to handle this. But if a member has information that should be relevant to the board's consideration of whether or not to agree to address it fully or have it handled administratively, we need to find out a vehicle by which we can get that in time. So we're going to have to talk about that and work on that a little bit more.
Because at minimum, I'd like to at least read the disclosure so that you can decide if it's relevant or not.
I think that would be that would not be ripe at this time. I appreciate that, but the disclosure is really a moot point since the item died. But thank you. I appreciate your candor in wishing to disclose the conflict. All right, so that's going to bring us to item number 5, communication to the city commission. I don't think we have any for tonight. And then that's going to bring us to, unless anybody has any communication to the city commission that they can think of. No? All right. That'll bring us to item number 6, for the good of the city. Anything for the good of the city? No?
I do have one other item to
Please.
bring up. Is that next month is National Historic Preservation Month. And so I think that the board should consider what opportunities we have to acknowledge properties or things that people in the city have done. And I know of 3 or 4 particular properties that I believe have done, a pretty good job of that preservation. And they should either be acknowledged with an award or acknowledged in general.
So
I think that's been done in the past, and so that's why I'm suggesting it again
by this board, do you know?
by HPP.
By HPV? Okay. I like it. Can we put that on the agenda for next month, as that would be Historic Preservation Month, so that we can then address it, make a decision, and maybe award it? Because I want to make sure that we have enough time to get the information on that. So can we place that on for the good of the city for next month? Yeah, that sound good? Can we do this by acclamation, or do we actually need a real vote?
Vote, please.
Mr. Bray's moving to add that to the agenda under for the good of the city for next month's agenda, or next month's meeting, excuse me. Is there a second to Mr. Bray's motion? Second. Thank you. Seconded by Mr. Carney. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, without opposition, that'll be added. I think that's a great idea, and that'd be wonderful. Do me a favor, Mr. Bray, just provide to Trish the addresses of the properties that you recommend and whatever information you have, so we consider it, because I think that would be great for us to give some recognition to some of those. I know the Community Appearance Board, they have their Community Appearance Awards, but I think it would be great if we instilled some of those too. That's cool. All right. Any other issues for the good of the order? Hearing none. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. Meeting will be adjourned at 5:51 p.m. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great evening.